Sorry I had to do this in two parts, Sean. I hope you'll tolerate the fact that I'm running a little bit over 15 minutes, but I think it's important that I go ahead and continue with the information I've collected, particularly with the reflections. Before I move on to reflections, our students on individualized learning plans, our special education students. We identify those students according to the process defined by KSTE's workflow. We use parent involvement, interventions, referrals, evaluations, and eligibility meetings to continually assess and provide student-specific plans according to those legal requirements. We also have an in-building SAT team that follows a similar process to identify students who don't fall within those special education guidelines, but who could benefit from additional behavioral or learning supports. And that SAT team puts together similar customized learning plans. In the classroom and for testing, caseworkers are assigned to each of those students. They regularly meet with me and other teachers to review the needs identified in each of those plans and to assess how students are progressing. They also provide invaluable in-class support for those students on plans, offering them one-to-one individualized instruction and behavioral guidance. And this year, given the size of the population that we have on plans, I don't know what I'd do without them. Teachers and caseworkers coordinate testing locations and accommodate special testing accommodations. And usually those caseworkers pull students out of my class. Almost all of the students on plans in my classes benefit from a quieter, individualized setting for tests. And in those settings, the caseworkers and sometimes paras provide additional reading support, interpretation, and a lot of step-by-step assistance for those students. That really helps get them through the multi-step process work that we're doing in secondary mathematics. We do have building resource rooms. These are non-inclusion rooms that provide modified instruction for students that are identified with alternative educational needs. I don't interact with those people at all, so I have no experience and no more information on that. But they are identified according to the evaluation process and pulled out into those resource rooms. So reflections. What implications does this have for my classroom? And I often wonder, am I a teacher or am I something more like an educational version of a circus ringmaster? Because of the large number of students we have performing at lower levels and the fact that we have a limited number of students that we can move into advanced math, this means that I have a wide variety of student performance levels in my room at any given time. And that challenges me to provide a great diversity of scaffolded materials, concrete learning supports, and gap closing instructional options. It means I often have to pull from 4th, 5th, and 6th grade math content to close gaps that students haven't quite mastered yet before they can proceed. And I have to do that in every session, every day. As noted, we have in-class CWC educators and paraprofessionals, and I have to very thoughtfully task them and use them as resources to help me address that wide variety of learning needs, either one-on-one or through small group learning. We have a shortage of math teachers in our district, and as I've indicated, that means the number of seats we have for our high-performing students to get into advanced math is extremely limited. That means that all of the students who ought to be in advanced math don't get that seat, and it means that they end up in the mainstream classrooms like mine, and that saddens me to no end. So I try to provide them with challenging, meaningful extension projects, and really I do that through discovery-based learning projects. The wide diversity of capability and acquired knowledge in any of my class sessions means that I spend a minimum amount of time on whole group instruction. I try to keep it as brief and as generalized as possible so that we can give way to targeted small group activities as soon as we possibly can. And so most of my instructional time is spent managing a variety of simultaneous activities occurring all together at the same time at different learning levels. but all focused on core objectives. It means that not only am I trying to become a master educator, but I'm also using all of the multitasking skills I brought from a former career, and I'm trying to become an experienced data analyst all at the same time so that I can keep students focused on as personalized learning activity as possible and keep tracking their data to keep them moving along, all at very, very different paces. In terms of cultural and language supports, I focus on two primary areas: student-family connections and content diversity. In terms of student-family connections, I do a bi-weekly multilingual newsletter and email. I do that through the generous support of the translators here in our district. I couldn't do it without them. And it's a way of letting students know not only how their own student is doing in class, but about what we're currently learning and the topics that are coming up. My students do an excellent job of inviting parents and community contacts into our classroom. It's one of the benefits of being in a small community. This adds a lot of relevance to students, not only about what we're doing in math and how those concepts are used in the real world, but it also is a wonderful opportunity for students to bring family members and people who are important in their own lives into our classroom, and it allows other students from other cultural backgrounds to experience a little bit of diversity themselves in ways that I hadn't really anticipated. Finally, the final benefit of living in a small community is the opportunity to do a lot of in-home visits. I see my kids everywhere in town, and I get to meet their parents, their siblings, their extended families, most frequently at the Y or at the grocery store, and they invite me home, and that gives me an opportunity to understand them a little bit better, to get to know the value system that they're working with and what their goals for their kids are. It also gives me an opportunity to share some of the value systems and goals I bring, talking a little bit more about college and life beyond Garden City. And hopefully we are both benefiting from that exchange. In terms of content diversity, the curriculum that the district mandates that we use in mathematics is on a Frye readability scale far too advanced for our students. It targets at about 10th and 11th, 12th grade reading level. And this poses some really severe reading comprehension challenges for our students. As a result, I do a lot of read-alouds in class. We do a lot of rephrasing. We use a lot of vocabulary supports, both vocabulary walls, reading and writing exercises to try and help students understand the concepts that are going on. The text relies on a lot of white middle-class cultural experience, sadly, but on the bright side, this offers us lots of opportunities for students to create their own more culturally relevant examples, and we have a great time doing that. I have joyful, creative kids who are not afraid to say, "Miss, I have no idea what that means," and I can tell them basically what the mathematical concept we're talking about is, and then they spin it into their own real-world examples. We record those both in writing and in multimedia formats, and I use them throughout all of my classes. Basically, the purpose of doing this content diversity and rewriting is to anchor our examples, scenarios, and applications in terms that are much more culturally meaningful to my students. They're more authentic experiences that they can relate to. It takes what we're doing and puts it in the context of things they understand, and that they can relate to their own experiences. And this supports not only engagement, as I said, they do it with a lot of creativity and joy, which helps keep them focused on math, which isn't always easy to do, but it also supports their long-term acquisition of the knowledge that we're gaining and helps them convert that to long-term memory more successfully. In terms of diversity and instructional methods, I use a lot of student choice. Our whole group instruction time, as I mentioned earlier, is limited and very generalized so that I can turn over our time to student choice activities as quickly as possible. In the morning sessions, I use a lot of individual work time or pair learning time to let students acquire new content in a way that suits their learning preferences better. I do that by offering a lot of variety in terms of how students can meet their learning objective for the morning. Students can opt for small, direct instructional groups with me. They can choose pre-recorded multimedia learning sessions. Sometimes I pre-recorded them. Sometimes I get those from other sources on the web. We use some online video resources. I use Khan Academy a lot, particularly since Khan has a series of videos that's aligned with the curriculum our district has mandated. I find a lot of interactive smartboard resources through university in Utah, their virtual manipulatives lab, and through the National Mathematics Instructors Society, NTRM, and through discovery-based projects, particularly for my level 4 kids. These are long-term group projects that they can begin through some individualized learning time in the morning and then extend to our afternoon activities. As part of those morning sessions, students are given a similar choice to demonstrate what they've learned and mastered. They can opt for written exercises, graphically presented exercises, multimedia recordings, or presentation activities. Each of those are guided through explicit requirements and through published rubrics. And I have to be honest, this early in the year, I don't offer the widest variety of those learning and assessment options. At 7th grade, students are still a little bit squirrely. They're learning to take on some of these new responsibilities. So as the year progresses, they'll be offered a wider and wider variety of these choices. Right now, those are pretty limited. As students demonstrate higher and higher levels of responsibilities, I open up more and more of those options according to individual need. Students record their choices in the morning in their learning profiles, and this helps them make better choices going forward. Our mornings wind up with whole group debrief sessions where students share what they've learned, and they also recommend to each other some of the experiences that they tried and how effective they were. In the afternoon, our learning communities take over. Students work in peer study groups for cooperative learning sessions and to build collaboration skills. Groups are allowed to select an activity in the afternoon, and they self-assign their group roles. We're still learning how to do that, but it does get better and better throughout the year. Each team presents their findings via a roundtable discussion, graffiti, or online presentation, and they are evaluated for their ability to grow what they've learned and their ability to grow their collaboration skills via self-assessment rubrics and through team meetings that they have one-on-one with me. Our technology helps support that. Right now we are limited in the number of iPads we have, so we have to share in class. But our technology does allow these groups to continue meeting after school hours, and it allows them to let their parents get involved in that learning activity. Parents can see what we've done in class, and there are extension resources out there that actually help the parents learn what we've mastered in class. Finally, students and parents can post questions to me and to other teachers and to each other to build a greater sense of community engagement. The goal of providing these learning communities basically is to build a learning network of students, parents, and community leaders, all of which I hope is heightening student engagement. It seems to be doing it so far. But these learning communities, which I use primarily in our afternoon session, are my best opportunity to raise lifelong learning expectations, to kind of help students see that learning from each other, learning outside of the classroom, and continuing that learning is the best chance that they have for meeting those college and career readiness goals and for looking at life beyond high school and continuing that education into college and into careers that maybe aren't something that's been part of their cultural experience at home or their life so far. That's pretty much it. I'm sorry I doubled the maximum time that you allowed. I apologize for that, but I hope the material is valuable, and I hope it's given you a little bit of insight into what I've learned about our community and about how to adapt to the variety of cultural and performance needs that our district is challenged in meeting. Thanks.